The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
The mind of Pat Popolizio is a wondrous thing. And for you Pac wrestling fans, you'll get to go inside the mind of the Skip each and every episode here on the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Now, here's your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt.
No more summer episodes. We are back into the full swing of classes for the NC State wrestling team and back in the studio for this brand new episode of the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. I'm your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt. And back in his captain's chair up at Weisiger Brown, we find the head coach of the Wolfpack, Pat Popolizio.
Good afternoon, Brian. Good to see you as always.
Pat, I hope you are buckled up into that chair. Not only do me and you have a lot to cover, but because you've been demanding a lot more of me this upcoming season, I wrangled up 2 interviews after we get done talking to you. So a whole packed episode of the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast, to say the least. So let's get going. Bit of different buzz this time of year up here at WB. Now, most of your guys were here for summer too, so it's not like they just showed up on campus this week, but how exciting is it for you and your staff to have the 1920 academic year started, and now preseason is right around the corner and it's about time to go?
So let's rewind real quick, because you say I'm the one being demanding, but as I recall off air, you were demanding more gear.
Dude, I hope Brad,
because you come in here with brand new gear, more gear than what I think our guys get. So you obviously got some good connections.
I got good connections. Adidas.com, very good website. I buy my own stuff.
Don't forget Outer Circle. They're Adidas with the wrestling side of things.
I like Adidas. Yeah.
Well, I guess you were calling out some other sports that you're requesting other gear. So we'll let them know.
Great to have you back, Pat. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, it's been good. I look at it as another training phase for us. We obviously we're here this summer going through different kind of training, having the freshmen here, all of them. Every single guy on our roster was here this summer. So I look at it like another phase of training that we're getting ready to go through. And I know the guys are eager and excited to get those workouts rolling. And, you know, the first week is a little challenging, just getting in sync with the timing and getting acclimated. And I think it's good. You know, guys had this last week to kind of get classes underneath their belt, get a schedule, routine, sleep, eat, the whole 9 yards. So we're in good standing now. No reason why we can't get up, crack of dawn, and start working out.
How was the summer of Pat? I think he took like about 2 days off in August.
Yeah.
Did you recover?
I was just having this conversation with Donnie the other day, and I was like, do you feel like we hit any downtime? And the answer to that is obviously no. So you got to love what you do, and they do. The season seemed to blend together a little bit, which is kind of the luxury of having a lot of guys here training in the off season. And, you know, one guy's getting ready for one world championships and the next guy's getting ready for another. And then we're rolling right into our season. So it's nonstop, but we love what we do. So it's fun, and we'll be squaring off here before we know it.
Here, Trent Hidlay going to Estonia, Nick Gwizdowski about to go to Kazakhstan. Why does Popolizio never go to any of these countries?
Interesting. I forget. Maybe you forget the Budapest one that we were just in last year.
You went to Paris. You did go to Guatemala. You did go to Paris.
Last May I was in Guatemala. So yeah, I don't know. I gotta see where we're at. But maybe we can get your. Let's get our passports out and see who's got some more stamps on them.
I am making a 2020 push for Tokyo, just to let you know.
So you want to just come to the finals? I see how it is.
But now we're going to do something we haven't done for many episodes. We are going to plug our own podcast. So, Pat, you can just sit back for a minute, relax. You had that big gulp of cheer wine. So just take it easy here. Let me go on one of my little spiels. But I really recently read a stat that said iTunes podcast library now has over 470,000 podcasts. So we know our listeners have many choices out there to listen to our podcast. So we thank you for joining us each and every episode, especially when Pat's on. But the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast continues to be the only podcast here from NC State Athletics, and it continues to be the only podcast in all of D1 wrestling that's hosted and produced by a school year-round. And A lot of work goes into these episodes, and they're a great way for our fans to get to know those student athletes off the mat. And if you have not done so already, please go in and subscribe. Don't be one of those people that just listens to these episodes on GoPack or YouTube. You can find the Pack Mentality Poppins podcast on every podcast platform, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, just so many. So once again, thank everybody for subscribing and downloading. We're going to continue to bring this great content. And man, that was a lot of talking by me. Pat, I just want you to say something. I'm not going to give you a great lead in. I always set you up. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit about our golf outing that we have scheduled coming up in October.
Place a specific date if you have it.
I do. Let me get that out for you real quick.
It's a good thing this isn't video. Like you're scrolling through your phone. October
25th is going to be our golf outing this year, and we anticipate having a really good turnout. And there's a lot of moving components to it. And I know we've met a few times with some of our alumni that have worked really hard to kind of set things up. So that's going to be a big date for us. On top of that, I think November 9th right now, we project to have our wrestle-offs, and there'll be some really good matches during that time. So, and I also believe that's a big weekend for a lot of other sports that'll be here. So I'm trying to get in a venue somewhere outside where we can get some space to host this outside, do a little tailgating, and watch some wrestling, football, and some other sports along the way.
I was going to say November 9th could set up to be a really good day. Clemson football game. You guys always do your wrestle-offs. Yep. Somewhere over at football. You're still working out those details, but you want as many people to come out. Wrestle-offs are going to be really competitive this year. You have a lot of spots that are open and just some new blood in here that you want to get out there in front of fans.
Yeah, a lot of unknown for certain weight classes and some new guys that want to challenge and step up. So it'll be good. A lot of depth this year across the board with this team. So that'll be a big weekend for us having those wrestle-offs. Usually in the years past, a lot of those weights are already decided, but I think this is going to be a good one where we got a lot of good in-house talent that will be showcased there.
Pat, going into year 3 of this podcast, we've pushed out 52 episodes. Well, maybe you haven't. You're not here all the time, but still a lot of great personalities we've heard from. Our fans are getting to know our guys on and off the mat. And I told our guys the other day, I said, if you want to be on the podcast, just come and get me. And 2 guys stepped it up. So we're going to have a couple of interviews. But first, starting off that team meeting, first day of classes. Again, it's not like these guys are new to campus, but take us through roughly what's in store for the guys this next month or so.
Yeah, it's good. I think you hit it on the head. We got a good group, great personality, probably one of the better attitude as far as the culture and mentality of mirroring everything that our team is about. This one's probably as good as it gets. So I'm excited to see these guys work together. Next month is just probably setting the tone for the season. This is a critical month to kind of just get a good foundation base built. And, it's probably one of the best times of the year when anything you're trying to focus on and change. This is when it has to start because it's the beginning of a new year, new training cycle. And this is when maybe old habits can become probably new habits. And that's something a lot of these guys are working on in the room. So we're across the board. Everybody's got weaknesses that we're trying to address, and they're doing a phenomenal job with that, on top of being willing and able to do any kind of training that's thrown at them. And the preseason can be a little tedious because it's a long ways away from competition, but it also is one of those where you're not in the best shape as you can be as an athlete, so you got to push through a little bit of those growing pains, and that's what we're going to see here in the next month.
I was going to say, you mentioned that, but in that staff meeting, you were saying you guys evaluate things and how things are run, and you say you're going to change up the preseason workout some this year. How's that looking?
Just make it harder. Guys will love that. No, we're, you're always evolving in your training cycle, and I think you got to look at what kind of team you have. And this is a working team, guys that can handle a little bit more of a grind, just the type of wrestlers we have. So, we're going to push these guys pretty hard this preseason, and a lot of them are already in phenomenal shape, and a lot of them already are extremely motivated. So we got to balance that. And not just train just to train. I mean, we're working on a lot of explosive power and agility. Craven does a great job. Donnie, Adam, Kevin are in there all the time. So there's a lot of great minds working together here. And we just got to, at the end of the day, we want to peak at the right time. So that's a big part of it. But keeping guys healthy, getting them in shape, but also mentally focusing in on areas where we know we can win a lot of matches when it really gets tough. And I feel like a lot of that's built in the preseason and the way that we've done it in years past. Some have been a little longer, some have been shorter, and I think it goes back to knowing what your team's capable of doing. And I know this team has a lot of experience and is capable of training extremely hard, so it's going to be a fun preseason.
Very early in the semester, but going towards the classroom, do you guys have a different philosophy about what the guys should be taking in the fall semester versus the spring semester?
I think you can add a little more on the academic side of things because of less travel. I think all our guys this year are very balanced academically, having a team. I think our team GPA was a little bit above a 3.0 last year, and a lot of these guys that contributed to that GPA are back. So I expect these guys to be challenged both academically and athletically, and that's what I like about these guys. Most of our guys will probably knock out their masters within their 5-year plan here. Some of them are graduating in 3 years. 2 guys on this team have a 4.0 right now. And it's a motivated group, and that's what we want, guys that are going to be successful. So we'll push a little harder in the fall, and then obviously when we start traveling and knowing that the training gets a little more intense towards the end of the year, we'll take maybe less credits. But the classes are all the same, kind of staying on course of what their majors are, but I think the credit load might change a little bit.
One of those 4.0s, redshirt freshman Trent Hidlay. Fans are excited to see him on the mat, but he was in the news a lot in August. He was representing the U.S. at the 2019 Junior World Championships, and Trent went over to Estonia, came home with a bronze medal as he competed in his first world team, and he went 4-1 in that international tournament, outscoring his foes 38-5, including 9-2-0 in the bronze medal bout. How would you assess his world championship run?
I think it was a great experience. I think he went in there with the right mentality to win it, and that's what you need to do at this level is expect to win right away, and that's what makes him great because that's the same thing. He's going to go into the college season. It doesn't matter who he's competing against. He trains the right way, and he mentally is ready to win. So he's one of those guys that is going to make some noise right away at this coming season. And, I know he was disappointed. He didn't finish on top, but it was a great way to rebound coming back. And I think that shows the kind of character and athlete he is, finishing third, because he's going to fight tooth and nail no matter what position he's in. And he's going to help elevate this team next year, no doubt about that.
I was going to say, how will Trent's style of wrestling freestyle translate to folk style in college wrestling?
Whoever he's competing against better be able to wrestle 7 minutes hard, too, because the way his pace is and how he wears guys down, I think is going to be dangerous for college because there is more time on the clock in college. And I think sometimes conditioning can be a little more of a factor in the college setting. So that's something that I think is going to benefit him a lot. Obviously, there's mat wrestling, which will continue to get better, top and bottom. So a lot of positives for him and his style of wrestling. So it's going to be fun. One of those guys that's really offensive, wrestles a really high pace, and is kind of way we pride our program is another one of those guys that's a fighter. So it's going to be good.
Now, don't skip ahead of Pat talking here, but we are going to hear from Trent on his international experience later in this podcast. But after Trent captured the bronze, I saw you tweeted out that since 2017, the Wolfpack Wrestling Club has produced 4 world medals, 3 different age groups. Of course, talk about Nick Gwiazdowski winning back-to-back bronze medals at the senior level, Sean Fowles winning silver last year at the U23s, and now Trent, very recently at the junior level. Obviously great results. First world medals for the Wolfpack RTC. How important is it for the college program to keep achieving these results internationally?
I think it's huge on a lot of different levels. We have a lot of support right now moving with our regional training center and donors giving money to help put these guys in position for that. And the guys that are here post-college training, they're funded well enough that all they have to worry about is showing up, working hard, and they're going to get an opportunity to go compete and get better. So they go hand in hand. And anytime you're around winners, I think it opens the door for new guys to win. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is get that first national title and then that first world medal. And we've knocked a couple of those out. And it makes it easier for guys coming in to understand what it takes to win. And that's what you're seeing at the college level, and that's why guys are producing more and more, is because guys like Nick Mock, Pete Renda, Kevin, Tommy, all those guys have paved the way for guys coming in. And now at the international level, Sean did it. Trent obviously just did it. And Nick is out there in the front the last 2 years, and it's not an easy job to do because you're dealing with the best guys in the world. And, one mistake is extremely costly. So these guys are professional now and continuing to get better. So it's fun to watch them all compete.
Maybe a tad away from NC State, but we have been seeing a few announcements lately of college wrestlers taking an Olympic redshirt this season. And I think at least 2 returning NCAA championships have declared. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is sort of a new trend in college wrestling as these guys are taking that redshirt and focusing on qualifying for the 2020 Olympics and taking the year away from college freestyle. How do you see this new rule affecting college wrestling this upcoming season?
I think it's good to have that option. It's cut and dry how you qualify. I think in maybe years past, and I'm not 100% correct on this, but I think you had to get waivers for it. But now it's just cut and dry. You qualify by doing A, B, and C. And we have 2 guys right now who've qualified for that, which we'll evaluate that. And the plan is to wrestle everybody right now. But always having options is a good thing. And, at the end of the day, it allows these guys to have peace of mind knowing that they were in position to at least have the opportunity to accomplish their goals if they want to go about it a certain way, whether they want to wrestle during the college season and then try to compete during the year on both, or just take the year completely off. So, yeah, it's good to have that option right now for these college guys.
Gearing up, getting ready to go through that qualification for the 2020 Olympics next summer. Former national champion Nick Wiskowski is currently out in Colorado Springs at USA Wrestling Training Camp, getting ready for the 2019 World Championships. Like I said, it's going to take place in Kazakhstan in mid-September. And since I should never assume you're going to be on one of our podcasts, I'm going to ask you about Nick today. Nick's brought home bronze each of the last 2 years at this tournament. What are your expectations going into this year as he secured a top 4 seed up at 125 kilos?
I think he's got the same mindset. Anything less than winning it, obviously, is a disappointment to him, and it's a tall task. He's got some really good competition out there, and no matter what weight you're at, you're dealing with the best guys. So the one thing with him is he is extremely focused, not just on wrestling. I think he's sharpened his mind a lot. He's done a lot more research, reading, and some other things to mentally help him. Any advantage that he can get, he's given himself right now. And it's fun to watch him continue to grow as a athlete and as a person, and he's working extremely hard. He's doing everything he needs to do to put himself in position to go out and win a gold medal. And that's all you can ask for these guys.
Brian Reinhardt's trying to put himself in position to be part of Team Gwizdowski and get to 2020 Olympics for full coverage.
Well, let's see what kind of travel you're going to do this offseason with it, and we'll see what kind of articles we're writing up.
I will gladly go to Tokyo.
I will say you stepped up your game, so it's negotiable. Everything's negotiable.
Last bit of team news before we get you out of here. You recently added a transfer into the program. Jacob Ferreira spent his freshman season at Bucknell, and he was going to provide depth at 184 and 197. What went into the decision to add Jacob, and how does he fit here at NC State?
It's one of those kids that I think he was very familiar with our program back in the day, coming to camp. I've spent a lot of time up in New York, different clubs. So I've known him for a while, and then I think it all came about. He was looking for a different opportunity, and once he put his name in the portal, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to give him a call, see what he was thinking, and it was obvious he wanted to be here, and I think he mirrors everything that we're trying to do as a program. His work ethic is on cue with everything we're trying to do. He's already a great academic student, and there hasn't been a day yet I haven't seen him and Trent since he's been here working out together. So I think in the right training environment and, maybe a year under his belt here because he's got that option to redshirt, he's going to be in position to do some good things for our program, depending on what weight he finishes up at. We don't know yet, so that'll be with time.
And, of course, I already tracked Jacob down during his first week on campus, and we're going to hear from him very shortly on this podcast. The Pat football season's gearing up. NC State opens with 3 home contests during the first 4 weeks of the 2019 season. Do you enjoy getting at the Carter Finley Stadium and being in that environment of those Wolfpack fans?
Yes, I think it's one of the greatest atmospheres you can be around. And I think what Coach Doran's done over there has been phenomenal. And he's always just involved in all different sports. So it's great to get out. It is. We'll do some recruiting with it. And the days that we don't actually have recruiting visits here, or sometimes you can sit back and maybe enjoy the atmosphere a little more. But it's just great to be around people that are that passionate about sports and competing. And yeah, as long as we're not in 110-degree weather, like I think last year a couple of those games got up there pretty hot. So this weather's been perfect though for this Saturday. Looks good.
Little adversity for some fans, never a bad thing.
Yeah, I guess you're right. As long as it's not raining, we're good.
Pat, as always, I appreciate you being on your own podcast. We really hit it out of the park today, and this was even before 2 more interviews.
Yeah, and you set me up with a couple of these good questions, so that's good.
Yeah, I'd like setting you up now. Stay tuned for more interviews on this episode of the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. And see, Pat, this is why we need a sponsor for this podcast. We could do a terrific ad read right here in this space as we transition to our next guest. Who can we talk to about pumping some money into this podcast?
Kawa's a good one. He's been doing some great things with his apparel company. So maybe we got to.
I think we have a lot of local business owners.
Local, yeah, a lot of alumni doing well. So we'll see who steps up to the plate. We'll start with Kawa though.
Be that first ad on the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Now stay tuned for 2 featured interviews. Our first guest on this episode of the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. He's only been in Raleigh a short time. So what better way to introduce him to the NC State wrestling culture than to make him do an interview on our podcast? And we're sitting down today with transfer Jacob Ferreira. Jacob, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Raleigh. Welcome to NC State.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I asked you for your last name like 3 times. I think I still mispronounced it. I said it so fast. Pronounce your last name for everybody.
Jacob Ferreira.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll call you Jacob. We'll go from there. But a bit of a whirlwind, I'm sure you've had the last month or so, especially just deciding to come to NC State not too long before the fall semester started. But first off, originally from up in New York, Matt Kisco, and home to a multiple NCAA qualifier and local business owner, Sam Spino. Mm-hmm. But you have a lot of connections to NC State among past and current members of the squad before you even stepped on campus. Talk about those relationships that date back many years for you.
Yeah, well, my high school club, owned by John Deagle, Empire Wrestling Academy. That's always been a connection to NC State, and they've always had the camps up there in New York, and I've always wanted to go to it. And it's just I have teammates down here that I wrestled with in high school, Matt Grippy, Jacob Camacho, that are guys I love and are good friends of mine, and it's a great place down here.
And with those connections and being a D1 wrestler last season at Bucknell, what did you hear or what were your impressions of the NC State program before you went through this recruitment process this summer?
I knew just from being a wrestling person, a wrestling fan, as well as a D1 wrestler, that's a really high-level program, winning ACC titles, placing top 10 at NCAA tournaments. It's just a really high-level program, and I want to be a part of it.
You were a true freshman at Bucknell last year, competing at 184. How would you assess your first collegiate season?
I would say it was basically a redshirt season, but I got thrown out there for a couple dual meets. It was a pretty good first collegiate season. I got to see what college wrestling was all about, and I'm excited for the future.
I don't want to put you or Bucknell on the spot here, but why did you decide to transfer?
NC State is just such a great school and has so many opportunities in the classroom and in the wrestling room with training partners and just coaches, and the situation was just all around better for me here than up at Bucknell. But I can't wait to get started here, and I'm excited for the future here.
And you went through this process of transferring a little bit later in the summer after some other transfers happened and all the signees were already on campus. What were you looking for in your next program?
I was looking for just a really strong support system, a really good coaching staff, lots of different training partners that would be able to, beat up on me a little bit, and so I can just excel to that next level of being an NCAA All-American national champion, and NC State was the place for that.
Have you had the chance to get in the room and scrap with some of the guys yet?
Yeah, I've been wrestling with Trent past couple weeks, and wrestle with Tyree, and just it's great to have such versatile partners. I can go up in weight, I can go low in weight, coaches I can wrestle with, RTC members, so it's just great to have all the options.
I was going to say, if our fans haven't seen any of your matches, how would you describe your wrestling style?
Definitely I would say relentless, as my club coach would say, John Deagle. But I'm very offensive. I like to wrestle in neutral and take a lot of shots.
Any freestyle, Greco?
Yeah, I wrestled at the U.S. Open, Junior Open, and U23 World Team Trials last year.
Okay. And what weight or weights do you kind of see yourself working at in 2019-20 here?
In 2019-20, probably I would say maybe making the drop down to 174, or maybe getting a little bigger at 197. We'll see how it plays out, what Coach Pat wants me to do. But I'm versatile. I can cut weight, I can get bigger, so I'm open to anything.
I was going to say, when you get in that practice room here at NC State, what are you working on to improve for the upcoming season in regards to technique from our coaches here?
Definitely on the mat, Coach Pat is a really good top wrestler, so definitely working on riding time, and that was one of the biggest issues I had adjusting to college wrestling, was wrestling on the mat, getting at a bottom, and so mat wrestling.
Moving over to the academic side of things here at NC State, what course of studying are you planning to take?
I'm an education major. Early education.
How were the grades up at Bucknell?
They were good. It's a tough school, but they were good, and hopefully keep improving here.
Pat has very high expectations for grades.
Yes.
We want you to continue that, but I know you've only been here a week on campus. Classes just started. How do you like campus? Do you do a lot of walking from building to building?
Yeah, it's like 10 times the size, so it's really huge. It's way different, but my class are 300 people instead of 25 people, so I'm adjusting to it, but the transition is going smooth, and I'm getting all my schoolwork done, and it's going well.
Have you heard about our summers here? You really have not felt the 90-degree muggy weather yet.
Yeah, I got here in the middle of August, was moving in all my stuff, and I was dripping sweat, and I'm dripping sweat walking around campus, so yeah.
Now, you haven't been down in Raleigh that long, and you haven't had a cut weight yet. Any new foods or different foods that you've tried that you like?
I'm a big ice cream guy, but Dairy Queen's always one of my favorites. Yeah.
I don't know if Dairy Queen is really exclusive down to here, but
I just like ice cream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, maybe a week from now or a month, whenever, what are you going to miss about back home compared to being down south?
My mom, my dad, my little brother, just being around the family. But I get to be home enough and be around them, and I call them and stuff. So I just like being in a training environment all times. When I'm at home, I get bored. Yeah.
You grew up in New York. Bucknell was in Pennsylvania. And now you're down in North Carolina. Have your parents talked to you? Are they going to be able to come down as much as they can to see you?
Yeah, my mom is a teacher, and she's a bunch of she's Christmas break and February break, so she's going to be able to fly down sometimes to watch a couple matches or tournaments and stuff.
You've already fit in pretty good on social media with Passing Current Guys. I say that's the best way for you guys to promote yourself and promote the wrestling program, but plug your social media so our fans can follow you and learn more about you off of the mat.
Jacob Ferreira 1 on Instagram and Jacob Ferreira 18 on Twitter.
Now, just that I let you say those out loud, you're going to be good on social media and, not getting any controversy, I would assume so.
Yeah, of
okay.
course.
But Jacob, thanks for joining really quick. You're in between classes here. Looking forward to see you in the red and white singlet this upcoming season.
Thank you for having me.
Kicking off the school year right, a second guest on this episode of the Pack Mentality Poppins podcast. We're now joined by redshirt freshman Trent Hidlay, fresh off his bronze medal winning performance at the 2019 Junior World Championships. Trent, back on the podcast by popular demand. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Now, you've certainly had a busy last month here in Raleigh, out to Colorado Springs for a training camp with USA, then off to Europe, Estonia for the Junior World Championships, and now back in time for the semester to start. Preseason's right around the corner. Have you had any time for just yourself these past few weeks?
Yeah, it's definitely been a unique summer. Not a whole lot of off time, but when I got back to Estonia, I took a few days, about a week and a half, to just kind of regroup a little bit and get ready for this upcoming season and the school year. But yeah, it was a busy summer, but the work I put in it definitely paid off, and it's gonna help me get into this next season.
Right out the bat here, what does winning a bronze medal on your first world team mean to you?
Yeah, I think it means a lot. And I said this in the interview with the people at Track Wrestling gave me. I think it's just it's a testament to the coaches here and the people I've surrounded myself with this past really year and a half, and the way I've worked for it. And it's just good that you put all that work in, and then to finally get something that pays off, it feels really good. And I think it's a a good foundation for me to build off in this next, redshirt freshman year and getting into the college atmosphere of, the dual meets and being on the team. So I'm really excited for that. And I think it was a great step for me. I don't think it's necessarily something I want to, sit on. It's something I want to help me propel into the next, the next goals of my wrestling career. So yeah, I think it was great, and it was a great experience.
You mentioned the track interview, but what about the social media expert that we sent with you, Kevin Jack? He was by your side, pictures, video, all. How was traveling with Kevin?
Oh yeah, Kevin really stepped up. We had a great time, and traveling to Estonia and the wrestling aspect of it. But yeah, he did great. He gave some good interviews. He might be applying for a job here soon.
He did good. He did everything we asked. But now we're going to get to your tournament run in a second. But I mentioned before, you went out to Colorado Springs ahead of the World Championships. Now, we hear about guys like Gwiz and Tommy Gann and Machiavello. They're actually out at USA training camp right now. But tell our listeners exactly what a training camp consists of, and how was it your first time out there?
Yeah, the Colorado Springs, the Olympic Training Center, it's definitely a unique place to train, and because there's so many good guys there. When I first got out there, most of the senior level members and world team members were out there, so you really get a good look at how some of the best guys in the country train and some of the workouts that they go through. And most of the beginning workouts we did was, once we got there, we got acclimated to kind of the elevation change, and it's definitely a big factor. You can definitely see a difference from training in Raleigh to training in Colorado Springs, but getting acclimated the first few days and then starting to get into some more specialized and detailed drills and exercises to a few things that Coach Kevin Jackson and some of the other coaches knew that we'd see overseas. Things like focusing on parterre defense and hand fighting and moving our feet, just things that the foreigners are known for. And for a lot of us, it was our first time going overseas. So just putting a lot of detail into those specific situations. And I think that helped me out a lot. When I was over there, I saw some things I've never seen before, but I was ready for them due to the training I had over there. So I think that was a big help for me and the way I wrestled over there. But yeah, it's fun over there. I think it's cool just to be able to train with the best guys in the country. Kind of gives you a perspective of where you're at, and you get to see new things that you can improve on and new areas of wrestling that you might not have seen before.
What was your journey from Colorado to Estonia like?
It was actually pretty smooth. I've never been on a flight that long, but we took a flight from Colorado Springs to Denver, which was like 45 minutes, and then we went from Denver to Frankfurt, Germany. That was about 10 hours. So just kind of sit back and try to watch as many movies as you can and get it going by. But from Frankfurt, we went into Tallinn, Estonia, and just got settled in. I think we got in around like 6-ish. So we kind of had the rest of the night to, we got a little bit of workout and then just kind of wait until 10 to go to sleep because the time change was about 7 hours.
That was your first international trip. First impressions on Estonia on the drive from the airport into town?
It was a little bit dreary. I didn't really know what I was going to expect a whole lot. I knew they had a history with the Soviet Union, and you can definitely see some of the buildings are more, you could tell they were kind of from the communist era where everything was kind of gray and a little bit dreary and boring. But there's definitely some really interesting buildings and architecture I got to see. So that was really interesting.
I was going to say, what were your accommodations and what were the training facilities like?
Yeah, we were in a hotel. It was pretty nice. I wasn't used to the small beds that they give you over there, but the hotel was nice. It pretty much had everything you needed, and they served food, and there was a restaurant down there that was pretty much just like buffet style. So I got to try a lot of different foods, but most of it was kind of what I was familiar with. And then this is actually kind of interesting. Our first day over there, we got picked up by the bus, and we quickly figured out that the bus schedule wasn't really much of a schedule. They just kind of came whatever they wanted. So we were about 30 minutes late, according to their schedule. And they picked us up, and we thought we were going to go to the arena and work out on the mats. And we're going down the road, and of course the bus is packed full of like 100 kids. There's probably like 50 seats on this bus. And we're going down the road, and they just make a stop, and they tell us to get out. So everybody gets out. We walk across the street, and it's like raining. It's kind of like it's kind of weird. And there's just like kind of like old, almost like rundown factory almost. Didn't look like what we were used to. And we walk in, the dusty steps, everything. It was crazy. We go up to the third floor, and there's just like two huge mats, and it's just kind of like a cool little wrestling area that we got to work out. And some of the guys were getting off weight, but it was just interesting. I've never been in something like that, but I got a good workout in with Kevin, and just got the last tune up for the tournament. But yeah, it was interesting. It was a cool little facility that we got to train in.
And your mom was able to make it over there. Were you able to spend any time with her and explore it all, or was it all strictly wrestling?
Yeah, we definitely did some exploring and sightseeing. I think if she wouldn't have been there, I probably wouldn't have seen much, just because I would have, I probably just would have sat in a hotel. But I think she kind of not forced me, but she encouraged me, and actually Kevin joined us for most of the excursions. But we took a little tour, and there was a guy that was giving us the history and some cool stories about some of the things we were seeing. But Estonia was a really cool place. There was a lot of cool little nooks and crannies throughout the town and the old town that we got to see. And I got some pretty cool pictures of just some of the old time buildings and some of the rich history that they had in that area.
I know you love talking about food. Did you try anything interesting or different?
Yeah, there was a few interesting things that they have at like the buffet lines. Some of the meats and cheeses, they were really big on that, like throughout breakfast and stuff. But for the most part, it was mostly food that we can get here. So it wasn't too crazy, but I definitely got to expand my horizons a little bit with the food. One of the, probably regarding the food, probably one of the funniest stories I have from that was, I think it was like the day before I started wrestling, and we were eating dinner. And I was in the line. There was probably 50 people backed up in this line, and I was right behind this coach from Georgia, and they just ran out of these like meatball types things, but they're really good. Everybody was getting a lot of them. They just ran out of them, and this guy was visibly upset, and he wouldn't leave the line until they were bringing back these new plate of meatballs. And from like in the back of the line, a coach from Turkey started to get a little restless, and he said, and of course I can't understand anything these guys are saying, and they just start like screaming at each other and like fighting in the middle of the buffet line, and I was just like sitting right behind them. I didn't really know what to do, but those guys were really getting serious about the meatballs, so they were good, and I had some of them, but it was interesting, yeah.
On to your matches at 86 kilos, you came out strong, back-to-back tech falls. In fact, you got a takedown and 2 gut wrenches in the first 20 seconds of your first match, and you outscored their first 3 foes 26-1 to advance to semifinals. That had to be a strong start and boost your confidence for you. Yeah,
definitely. Since it was my first time over there, I didn't really know what to expect a lot from the guys I was wrestling, and I didn't know anything about them. So, my game plan was to go out there and just do the stuff that I like and do the stuff that's worked for me, and I think it worked to my advantage a little bit. I don't know if some of those guys have seen some of the stuff I threw at them, because it's definitely a different feel from an American, but I felt really confident. I had good training leading up to that, a great warm-up, and everything was clicking. First few matches went great, and I was hitting everything I wanted, and my confidence was really high. I felt good out on the mat, and I thought I was going to win it all.
Strong matchup on paper in the semifinals. You had that guy from Russia. He was the 2017 junior European champion. I'm not even going to try to say his name, but you started off 1-0 lead at the break. He countered with the takedown in the second, and you were close to another takedown, but they awarded him a push out, and your corner challenged, but that point was upheld, so a penalty point, and your match was behind a paywall. So for those that missed it, kind of take us through that sequence that kind of led to that result.
Yeah, so little bit of, I don't know, I wouldn't say controversy really, because I think it was the right call, but kind of like a heat in the moment type thing. And I was down 3-1 or 2-1, down 2-1, and I was looking for a score to go on top, and we got into kind of a little bit of scramble near the edge, and I went to kind of push him out, and he circled in, and I came out. I thought his foot went out. And Coach Kevin Jackson, the USA coach, thought his foot went out too. So the choice was to throw the brick, and ended up not. I ended up his foot didn't go out, so they gave him an extra point for a failed challenge, and after the match, I guess for the rest of the match, that put me down 4-1 with about a minute left. I ended up getting a takedown, and then I needed another score at the end, but I couldn't get it. So I guess in hindsight, a lot of people want to say it was dumb to challenge, but when you're in, I think it's hard for people to see, like when you're in the heat of the moment, it's a hard decision to make, whether you're the athlete or the coach. So, that wasn't something that I was looking back on, like, oh, if we wouldn't have challenged that, I would have won, because you never know how different the match is going to go. If I would have won that challenge and it would have went 2-2, his game plan would have changed. The way he would have wrestled would have changed. So, I don't like to look back on things like that and kind of, say I would have won if the challenge would have went my way, because, that's not how wrestling is, and it's a crazy sport, and anything can kind of happen. But I didn't really pay too much attention to it. It was a very tough loss, and reaching the world finals was definitely something I wanted to do. But when something like that happens, you got to be able to respond. So. I took a little bit of time after that, and, that was my last match for the day. So, I had enough time to, sit back and think about what my next goal was. I think that's something that I've developed a lot since coming to NC State is, dealing with a little bit of adversity and figuring out, what are you going to do when things don't go your way? So, getting the next best thing was winning my bronze match the next day. Didn't know who I was going to wrestle. Didn't really care. I just wanted to go out there and, leave Estonia with some hardware. So, and that's what I did. I didn't dwell on it. I took the loss on the chin and got ready for the next day.
I was going to say, you came back 9-0 win in the bronze medal bout. What was your game plan going into that match? Yeah,
my game plan was just to wrestle the same. I was wrestling good all week, and, I didn't want to change anything up. I knew they probably have a little bit of a scouting report on me and game plan, and they did. But I didn't want to change anything I was doing different. I was just going to, bring the fight and, go 6 minutes hard and hopefully come out on top.
I don't want to get kicked out of the next tournament, but we could talk about officials a little bit here. You hear from the fans that matches are scored a bit differently by officials when Americans go to these European-based tournaments. What did you think?
I actually didn't see any of that. I didn't think the refs were biased in any way. But I think the matches are definitely a lot more intense than what it is on the screen. I mean, you got these people from these other countries, they love this stuff, and they get into it, and being a ref is I think is a tough job at that level, and I think they did a really good job of it. I didn't run into anything where I thought I was deliberately being screwed over or anything like that. I thought it was ref pretty well.
You've racked up quite a bit of trophies this summer: U.S. Open, World Team Trials, now that bronze medal from the World Championships. Are you the type to display them to keep you motivated, or do they go back up to Lewistown with mom and dad?
We actually have the house that Hayden and I and my older brother Heath, we live in. We kind of have like a little shelf up from our staircase, so we kind of put our stuff. But I think for me, and I know this goes for a lot of the guys on our team, I think it's all about the next thing. I talked about kind of getting the next best thing after losing the semi match, and it's kind of the same situation. It's great. I think it's great what I did, and I'm proud of it. But there's more to be done, and my goals are bigger than that. So, I enjoy it, and I'm happy for myself. But at the same time, I'm getting ready to make a push to be a national champion in March. So yeah, I think it's just getting the next best thing and focus on your next goal.
Back to school here. What's your course load looking like this semester? You had a 4.0 last year. A lot of pressure to keep that GPA up.
Yeah, definitely a lot of pressure. Pat always jokes about me. He always says there's the only way to go from here is down. So I gotta keep busy, and I'm taking my classes are a little interesting this semester. I have introduction to Spanish, interpersonal communication, it's an online class, intro to business processes, managerial accounting, and macroeconomics. So I'm excited for them. I think they're all pretty interesting so far, and I've been leaning towards accounting recently for my major. So I'll be interested to keep that going and just expose myself to some new classes.
You said Spanish you're taking. What was the language over in Estonia?
So the Estonia, they have Estonian language. They have a native language. I think it was kind of what I remember hearing is kind of a mix of some Russian and some just kind of a lot of countries from around there. But everybody pretty much spoke English, which was really nice. Sometimes I didn't quite hear what they'd say, but for the most part, it was pretty easy to communicate with all the locals.
How was it wrestling on the mat? Your opponent, you can't really understand what their coaches are telling them to do. How different was that?
To be honest with you, during the match, I didn't really notice it a whole lot. I think it's kind of weird once you start a wrestling match, you really don't hear anything outside of, I don't even know how to explain it really. It's even hard to hear your coaches speak sometimes just because you're so in the zone. But I think what was funny to me was going back and watching the matches afterwards on my phone, hearing the other coaches, they yell a lot and they scream a lot more than I think American coaches do. So it was kind of funny just because I was like, wow, I didn't even notice that. And here these guys were, yelling at the top of their lungs at their guys. But yeah, it was interesting. But it was nice at the same time because all the countries and coaches and most of the wrestlers had a little bit of wrestling knowledge. So if you need to communicate with them, it's a pretty universal yes, no, stuff like that. So, but yeah, the hearing the other coaches while I was rewatching my matches was kind of funny.
Trent, thanks for joining us. You already told me you were doing this interview before you went down to the practice room, so have a great workout. And thanks for letting our fans inside a little bit into your international travels.
Yeah, for sure. And I got one more thing for the fans. We talked last episode about the hoagies here in Raleigh. I think I've solidified the Harris Teeter, kind of deli line as my go-to hoagie at this point. They have usually on the weekends they have deals where you can get them pretty cheap. So I've been utilizing that a lot.
But wait, is there a certain Harris Teeter, or do they vary, or can you go to any Harris Teeter?
So I've only gone to two. I've gone to the one in Cameron Village, that's pretty close, and then one down a little past Tryon. But they've both. I've both been satisfied both times I've gone, so it's a good hoagie for not putting a dent in your wallet. So,
but what's the order? You never said. What's the specific order
of hoagies?
Yeah.
So I go usually I stick to the turkey and cheese and the my normal toppings, but they also have a breaded chicken one, like a breaded chicken cutlet with cheese that they warm up, which is really good too. So
it's not fried chicken, is it?
No, Pat, it's not fried chicken, I swear. But the Italian, ham and cheese, I got it all. It's good.
Harris Teeter, we want your sponsorship. It would be great to have you. But Trent, always great to have you on. Thanks for joining us. Good luck with classes.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
I want to thank everybody for listening today. This is your Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast covering all things NC State wrestling. Until next time, Wolfpack wrestling fans, go Pack.
Mentality Pop-Ins podcast is produced by the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, go to MatTalkOnline.com.